time to spotlight the tech earnings, the big names, Salesforce, C3 AI, Zscaler. We've also watched Apple, Tesla, Palantir. These are all names that Dan Ives has spoken about, Managing Director, Equity Research, Wedbush Securities. Thank you so much for being here, Dan. Looking good in yet another colorful thing. Best dressed man on Wall Street. Could you believe what a big spread they gave you in the New York Post? I woke up, I couldn't believe it. That was a big spread.
Yeah, it was super fun, and look, it's exciting because look, just like yourself, I think dressing fun and dressing in colors, it's what we've always done, and to be on the Post, that was a great one. Definitely frame that one.
Yeah, I hope you have it. That being said, it takes some of the stress of what's making these calls on Wall Street. It also talked about you being sort of a perma-bull on some of these names. And I wanted to go through some of these names. I mean, for Salesforce, for example, it was a name that you liked a lot, right? But really took everything down. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, look, Nicole, me and you have talked about this for many, many years. I think companies like a Salesforce, they're going to go through growth transitions as you have this massive shift to AI. And I think that's what Benioff talked about. I mean, you're seeing longer sales cycles on some of these deals, but I view it as a speed bump. I think it was an overreaction on the sell-off, and I think this is one, just like Palo Alto, go back a month or two ago, I think this is one, 6, 9, 12 months from now, Salesforce, we're going to be talking about stock at all-time highs as this install base continues to focus on this next shift to AI, and that's what Benioff is continuing to aim at.
Yeah, I mean, I think you called it the gold standard at one point, and I'm just reading an article. Salesforce still confident about becoming an AI era winner, despite the disappointing quarter. Still gold standard in your mind?
Look, haters will hate, but I mean, if you look at Mount Rushmore of tech, Benioff is up there with Jensen and with, of course, Cook, Nadella, McDermott, and others.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows, and we'll hit on some of the other names, you're going through a have and have nots. Any whiff of caution or negative, just like a Mongo today, Salesforce yesterday, these stocks are going to get crushed. But I view them as opportunities to own the winners. Salesforce, I view as a table pounder here.
Yeah. Look, you have 315, and it's interesting because you always seem to be on the high end. Before I get to the next name, I mean, Macquarie has 275, Argus put 290. Why do you shoot so high on all your targets all the time?
Look, I think a lot of analysts, it's easy to be in the right lane in the minivan going 45 miles an hour. I mean, we just look at where I think these stocks could ultimately go, and I think they're underestimated in terms of the overall growth opportunities. And I think many that have been cautious in tech, for the last few years, they continue to be, in those caves in hibernation mode with their spreadsheets.
Right. Zscaler had a big jump, up 8%. That was a big one here on the heels of news, and the largest percentage increase since 2023. It's well off the highs. It's at 166. Where do you think it's headed and why?
Look, I think this is from a cybersecurity, along with CrowdStrike and Palo Alto. I mean, these are the trifecta way to play. I think Zscaler is, in my opinion, this is a name that could be up 40, 50% over the next year. Because as more moves to the cloud, they're going to see more and more of these workloads that need to protect. You look at that billings growth number, I think numbers still conservative. Say you had a few downgrades this week, sentiment's still negative on the name. And if there's someone I'm betting on cybersecurity, no longer than the cash from Palo Alto, it's Jay at Zscaler. I think they've done everything to lay out the growth strategy next few years.
So 40 to 50%. You think it goes up $100? I mean, your target, it's at 166, and your target is 260. Next up, C3 AI. By the way, we're going to be talking to the CEO, Tom Siebel, again next week. He's been on the show before. He's a great guest. Looking forward to that conversation. You have an outperform and a $40 target. Why?
Because I think it's a 1995 moment, not 1999. I think this is going to be the biggest massive amount of growth that we've seen in tech in 35, 40 years. That's coming to the shores of tech. So when you look where C3 and where Siebel's positioned, look, Siebel, as you know, I mean, decades and decades in terms of tech, and I'll be the first one to tell you, unlike anything they've ever seen. And I think they are extremely well positioned, along with, of course, Messi of AI, Palantir, Snowflake, a handful of, we could argue MongoDB. You know, I think this is a stumble, but doesn't change the structural growth story. And I think C3's been a turnaround. And it's one where, many have bet on the downfall of C3, but yet look what they've been able to do, turn the corner.
Yeah. And you have a $40 target. It's at $29.21. Other names, I mean, Palantir, you called the Messi of Lionel Messi of AI. You love Palantir. Do you still love it?
I mean, best pure play growth name and pure play AI name, I think, out there. And I think what Karp and the team have done is still so underappreciated. From a use case perspective, they are going to be front and center. I think this is one where Palantir in the next 2-3 years will be a household name. And I think they're just starting that journey. So it's a name. You'll have ebbs and flows in terms of quarters and overreactions, but this is ultimately a stock, $35 to $40 is, I think, where it's heading.
Well, you said that it was probably one of the most underestimated AI plays. When was it, that Palantir, what was the moment, the defining moment for you that you said, you know what, Palantir is not just Palantir or something good, it's something great? What was that moment?
It was about a year ago when I'm talking to all of our checks and all these Microsoft, Oracle, all these partners, Palantir kept coming up. Because I think everyone viewed it as just a government play, but essentially in the enterprise, especially with AIP, I think they really built the platform that's going to transform the company. And look, you could, and people will fret from a quarter to quarter in terms of what they're going to do. This is almost similar to when Jensen took NVIDIA from a gaming company into, of course, the godfather of AI and the gold standard to where we are today. I think that's what Karp's doing with Palantir. This is a massive transformation story in motion.
All right, now the Worldwide Developers Conference is coming up on June 10th. You don't think this is just a regular conference or even just the conference of the year. I mean, you're saying this is a moment in the decade. What kind of moment is this?
I think it's the biggest moment for Apple in over a decade because this is AI now coming to Cupertino. And some will say, they haven't had the AI strategy. It's the biggest install base in the world, 2.2 billion. So now it's Cupertino and Cook unveil. It's AI for developers. I think most consumers around the world will interact with AI, generative AI, through an Apple device. This starts with essentially going to be a new app store in terms of generative AI app store, and then will be AI built into iPhone 16. So if this is now them in the grand entrance where they're going to show AI to the Apple ecosystem. And I think it's a key moment, not just for Apple, for the rest of tech. And betting against Apple, which many have done over the last decade, it's just the wrong move. I think renaissance of growth on the horizon.
So as they release this AI strategy, which everybody's waiting for, and that's likely what we're going to see, you can't just get that on the 12 Pro or the 13 Pro Max. It turns out that it's going to require iOS 18, require at least an iPhone 15 Pro, which uses the A17 Pro chipset. Is that a good move for Apple or a terrible move?
It's a phenomenal move because I think you're going to see right now you have 270 million that haven't upgraded their iPhone in 4 years. It's going to be the catalyst. And as most interact with that from an app perspective, from pictures to overall functionality, you're going to need these new chips and ultimately these new iPhones in terms of a lot more of the apps and technology that's coming out. And I think that's what they're going to talk about at WWDC. That's why it's going to be a historic moment for Apple. I don't think we sit here June 10th at 4 o'clock saying it was a disappointment. I think it's the start of a new chapter.
How much do you care about the car, the Apple car that's not? That was, and now it's not. Is that even a story anymore?
Well, I think the
They lost a lot
story
of
is they
money.
finally. Well, yeah, I mean, look, they finally shut that down, but now it's all focused on AI, and I think there's a lot of things. I mean, the car being one of them that they focus on within Apple Park and never sees
Yeah.
the light of day. But that's the
All right, I
nature of
want to
what
get to
Apple
Tesla.
does. Hmm?
Yeah, the stock is at 190 today for Apple. What's your target on Apple?
250. I base
And
275 is the core base target that we just raised it to. 250 is what I kind of view as almost a worst case base scenario. 275 base case.
then you have a bull case, like within the next year?
300, 300. Look, I think, Nicole, I think a year from now, the conversation that me and you're going to be having is who hits 4 trillion first? The godfather of AI, Jensen, NVIDIA, Apple, or Nadella and Microsoft? That will be the conversation a year from now.
All right, so that'll be the race. Apple, NVIDIA, Microsoft for the 4 trillion
The
mark.
race to 4 trillion.
Last but not least, yep, I got it. What about Elon Musk and Tesla? This was a name you loved. You loved his vision. You wanted him to be the adult in the room. You felt like he did that in the last call, missed it on the prior call, but grew up in one quarter. Now what? What's your target on Tesla these days? How much do you like it or not so much?
Yeah, look, I think this is what I think an overhang gets removed when the comp package gets approved at the shareholder meeting. And I think then you now start to see demand tick back up in China as we go in the second half of the year. Numbers are lowered, and then I think the FSD autonomous vision starts to take hold, and that's why when I look
Yeah.
at Tesla, I ultimately think this is one we're going to be talking $275, $300 for Tesla, as we play out over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yesterday, I spoke to, this is my final thought, but yesterday I spoke to Steve Wesley, who used to be a former board member of Tesla, but he always liked Tesla a lot. But he said that the August 8th event is huge. I want to know how huge you think that August 8th event is. And he said, one, we better hear more about one of these two things or both, full self-driving and the $25,000, a reality vehicle. These are imperative. What say you? How big is the event, and what's imperative to see at this August 8th event?
Scale 1 to 10, I'd call it an 11 in terms of how important it is. Because just like Steve talked about autonomous, and ultimately it's the sub 30K car. We'll call it a model 2.5 that we believe comes out early next year. And I think that will be the vision. That's how you're going to be talking about 3-4 million units per year. It's all about that sub 30K.
All right. Thank you, Dan Ives. Good to see you at Wedbush
Thank you.
Securities. I really appreciate it. Good to see you, Dan. Thanks.